Previously on the film show.
I thought I'd run down some of my favorite films of 2022. Apollo 10.5, A Space-Age Childhood. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. The Fabelmans. Pinocchio. RRR. Sadly, my full-time job down at the hatchery prevents me from going to the pictures as much as I'd like to.
And now the thrilling conclusion to Eugene's favorite movies of 2022.
The Banshees of Inisherin. It's 1923 and the Irish Civil War is in its final stages, but a couple of miles off the mainland on the island of Inisherin, folks just carry on with their lives totally unaffected in their small, insular existence. Colin Farrell plays Padraig, a farmer and simple-minded fella who looks forward to meeting his best friend down at the pub every day for some pints. But one day, his friend Colm, played by Brendan Gleeson, just up and decides that he doesn't like Padraig anymore and would prefer it if the two of them didn't speak to each other anymore. Colm explains that Padraig's dull, idle chit-chat over beer is not the way that he wants to spend the rest of his life. He'd rather use the time that he has left to compose music on his violin and perhaps leave something in the world that he'll be remembered for. But Padraig just can't accept the fact that his friend wants nothing to do with him anymore. He keeps persisting and prodding and poking the bear until finally Colm gives him a grisly ultimatum. The next time you talk to me, I'll cut off one of me fingers. Padraig lives with his sister Siobhan, played by Carrie Condon, who is going through her own existential crisis. She's an intelligent and book-learning type who recognizes this petty madness going on all around her and fears that her fate will be no different if she stays on the island. Everyone on Inisherin knows each other's business, grudges last a lifetime, friendships are just a product of the circumstances, alcohol is plentiful, whatever potential that's present is squandered, and everybody goes a little mad. This movie just sang to me. Writer-director Martin McDonagh balances humor, sadness, and tragedy in unexpected ways and has crafted what is almost like a Grimm's fairy tale in a way. It's a very funny movie, but be warned that it also takes some very dark turns. Ah, 'tis me life on Inisherin. Mad God. This is an unforgettable animated film that was 30 years in the making by writer-director Phil Tippett. Some of you may not know his name, but you know his work. He cut his teeth doing stop-motion animation and creature design on the original Star Wars trilogy, and he would win a Special Achievement Oscar for the visual effects in Return of the Jedi. And Cheech and Chong handed out the awards. He would go on to do more amazing work in RoboCop, Willow, RoboCop 2, and Jurassic Park, where he would receive a second Academy Award for visual effects. It was around that time that he started shooting Mad God and came up with a few minutes of footage. But movies were making the transition from stop-motion animation to CGI at the time, and he decided to shelve the project. Cut to about 20 years later, and some of the members of his studio discovered this bizarre oddity and encouraged him to complete it. And it is unlike anything you've ever seen, a literal descent into hell. We follow a character known only as the Assassin as they make their way through one nightmarish scene after another, carrying a briefcase and a vague, crumbling map that's leading them on. There's no spoken dialogue in the film, and if you're someone that needs their hand held when it comes to story and plot, well, good luck. If I do have one complaint, it would be that the film could use a little more narrative thrust to keep you steady on this grotesque journey. As it is, though, you get a sense of what's going on, but you have to eventually just give yourself over to it. It's more about atmosphere than story, and about how everything beautiful will eventually decay and turn to crap in a cruel cycle that just keeps repeating on through the ages. Isn't that just life? It's a film you need to see more than once. Every single shot, every single frame is just packed with something interesting or repulsive to look at, and you'll never catch it all on a single viewing. Mad God was a real labor of love by all involved, and there will never ever be anything else like it. A truly nightmarish vision from one of the all-time masters of the craft. Pearl is the second film in a trilogy, preceded by the film X, also from last year, and will be concluded with the forthcoming Maxine? Mia Goth stars in all three films, which are directed by Ty West. Pearl is a prequel story taking place in rural Texas in 1918. Pearl's husband has gone off to fight in World War I, and she lives on a farm with her demanding and strict mother and invalid father. When she's not tending to the animals and doing farm chores, she dreams of one day being in show business as a chorus girl. She meets a handsome young projectionist at the local movie theater, and they take a liking to one another. He even shows her some illicit stag films that he's acquired during his travels abroad. But all is not quite right in her mind, and in order to try and free herself of her circumstances, she's capable of doing some truly horrific deeds. Mia Goth, who also co-wrote the screenplay, gives a powerhouse performance here. How she turns on a dime from naive, innocent, and sweet little farm girl to murderous sociopath is scary as hell. Many critics felt that her performance was one of the best of the year, but since it's a horror film, it was of course ignored by the Academy when the Oscar nominations came out. They're pretty snooty when it comes to genre films. As mentioned before, this is a prequel, but it's not necessary for you to see X in order to enjoy Pearl. It's pretty self-contained. It just tells the sad story of a disturbed young woman with crumbling dreams of escaping her meager existence, but can only retreat into fantasy and violence. It's an extraordinary origin story. Weird, the Al Yankovic story. Weird Al Yankovic's hilarious musical biopic that hits all the cliché tropes of the genre and turns them on their ear. Sometimes it's factual, but it's mostly just made up. It was my favorite comedy of last year, and I even did a longer piece about it when it came out. So go back and check that one out. I play the accordion. The link is in the description.
And now it's time for some honorable mentions.
Avatar: The Way of Water. Big Jim Cameron's long-awaited sequel to the 2009 smashola Avatar. The action, the effects, the environment, all top-notch, exhilarating, and gorgeous. It does lose some points, however, for its clunky and sometimes just straight-up cornball dialogue. That and its bloated runtime of 192 minutes. Yes, Jimbo, I know that you want to fuck water, but 3 hours is just too much, man. But with all that said, I still had a good time, and I'm looking forward to more of these Avatar pictures. Prey. Easily the best Predator movie since Predator 2 from 1990. This time around, we're in the year 1719, following the daily grind of a young Comanche woman, Naru, and her tribe. And wouldn't you know it, those damn predators were visiting Earth even way back then. Soon enough, Naru's gotta use all the skills and wit she has to stand a chance against the Predator's superior weaponry. I want more of these Predator in the past movies. Give me Civil War Predator, Samurai Predator, Pirate Predator, I don't care, just make it happen. Terrifier 2. Art the Clown is back and doing what he does best, serial slaughtering. The first Terrifier film quickly achieved cult status for its crazy practical gore effects and instantly iconic killer. So a sequel was developed and the budget was crowdfunded through Indiegogo and raised about $250,000. And it went on to be one of the biggest box office surprises of the year, bringing in over $14 million, which is a pretty handsome return on money spent, especially for a picture like this. It is the most violent, goriest film I have ever seen. Unrelenting, pouring salt in the wound, sadistic, and, dare I say, fun as hell. But the fun is stretched to the absolute limit, and with a runtime of 2.5 hours, it was really starting to feel its length by the end. There's overkill, and then there's killing overkill. So I gotta dock it a few points for that. However, it does gain some bonus points for the sweet vomit bags that were handed out in the movie theater. Great little souvenir. If you're gonna spew, spew into this. 3,000 Years of Longing. A visually scrumptious romantic fantasy epic from Mad Max director George Miller. Tilda Swinton plays Alethea, a lonely narratologist who unearths a djinn from an antique bottle she's purchased. Idris Elba plays the djinn, which is essentially a genie, and he is to grant Alethea 3 wishes, whatever her heart desires. He also tells her 3 tales from his painful past and the occasions on which he's been trapped inside the bottle, often for centuries at a time. I was swept away in his heartbreaking stories of servitude, banishment, trickery, and lost loves over thousands of years. The film received mixed to positive reviews from critics, but sadly it laid a big egg in theaters. I think a lot of folks were expecting George Miller to give us another masterpiece on par with his previous film, Mad Max Fury Road, which is just beyond unfair. I really hope people will go back and check this one out, because I think it's its own kind of quiet, gentler masterpiece. There's no story about wishing that is not a cautionary tale. And with that, I'm gonna wrap things up by just rattling off a few more titles for you. Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe, Clerks 3, Jackass Forever, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Moon Age Daydream, The Northman, and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Well, gang, that's 20 movies for you. I'm sure you could find something in there you like. Oh, and the Academy Awards are this weekend. You know, there's a real good chance that the Best Picture winner will be... That's the work whistle. Well, I gotta be getting back to the hatchery. I'm Eugene, and this was my film show.